Susana,
yes.
jumping straight in, I wanted to understand for PRs like myself, the Hispanic audience is hugely significant. Now, you have been working with this audience for decades. And what insight can you share for PRs like myself and those listening in who want to understand what are the most common strategic missteps that brands can make when they're adapting English language campaigns for Hispanic audiences? And how can we, as PR professionals, avoid cultural blind spots before it's too late and it just goes on social and we get the backlash?
That's true. It sometimes can happen. And definitely what I would say is to actually hire people or have people on your team that know about these cultural differences and know about, Hispanic communities, especially we're talking about the US. So when I talk about Hispanics, I definitely mean in the US, because in Latin America or in Spain, it's different. I don't think you would use in general the same approach. But yes, I think a lot of companies and PR agencies may fall short of this by just thinking, oh, I can just translate, whatever marketing copy or whatever slogan from English to Spanish. And the problem with that is that sometimes it may resonate because it coincides with whatever it is in Spanish, but then sometimes it can just fall flat on Hispanic ears or eyes when they read that, when they see that, because it doesn't connect with them. And connection, it's so important when it comes to PR. It can make or break your campaign. So, yes.
Susana, I have this lazy habit when I'm doing audience segmentation. I tend to look at ages, I'll look at gender, I'll look at any other large impacts, their interests. I could just see myself looking at like a Gen Z Hispanic audience and missing the fact that there's actually multiple cultures within that. And I would create messaging that I think applies to Gen Z Hispanic. And I, as I'm listening to you, I think that's a lazy approach. So how do you do this? And at the end of the day, if I have to create a million different messages for a million different little audience segments, how am I supposed to do that?
I know it's difficult, but it sometimes pays off, honestly. It's like saying, I'll just send a mass email to everyone instead of I'll do targeted emailing, which I think sometimes really pays off much more than just mass emailing. So it depends how much you want to obviously segment your demographics. With Hispanics, you could say, I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 different targeted emailing or targeted approach. So I would say that Hispanics in the US, there are some who are native Spanish speakers and who don't really speak. They may speak English, but their main language during their day-to-day is Spanish. And they consume Spanish-speaking news. They rarely, if ever, read or watch English-speaking news. And then you also have the people who are either fully bilingual, or they're maybe 2nd or 3rd generation, and this may include Gen Z Hispanics. So I don't think you would target Gen Z Hispanics the same way you would target this other group that I was talking about that basically only speak Spanish and they're 1st generation Hispanics in the US. Because they probably consume news or stories in a completely different way, to be honest.
You mentioned sort of traditional media. With Spanish language media still driven by powerful platforms like Univision, Telemundo, and radio. Tell us a little bit about the Hispanic community in terms of, is there a generational divide where perhaps the older generations, they tune in to the traditional media, younger generations more on social media? Is there any particular social media channels that they favor over others? And also how to approach sort of influencer partnerships, just so that we get an idea about how to navigate between traditional media and different social media channels and also the influencer landscape.
Yeah, I would say that traditional media, it's usually the favorite media for older Hispanics who are 1st generation. And by older, I don't mean like 60 or 70. I mean, maybe people my age who are a little just over 40. Definitely, a lot of Hispanics listen to Spanish-speaking radio. Even sometimes, even if English is their first language, it's just because they've heard their parents, they've heard their grandmas, their abuelas, listening to a certain radio show or radio station, and it's something that's comforting to them. So even though they may be younger, there's a huge connection to radio, and this is something that a lot of companies, of PR agencies don't understand. Hispanics consume a lot of radio. It's the main vessel for news, songs, anything new that they want to listen to.
Why is that, Susana?
I don't really know why. I think it's because they can hear it anywhere. They just need to turn on the radio, whether it's in their phone, their home. To be honest, I do remember my grandparents with the little radio. It's called transistor in Spanish. Yeah. So they would carry it everywhere. If my grandma was cooking or cleaning, she would always have the radio on, and my grandpa would sleep with the radio on right next to him. So I don't know why. I think it's just because it's something very easy to consume. And then it goes through generations. As it moves on, then it becomes, nostalgia. Oh, well, my mom listened to the radio or this show, and it brings me closer to her. I grew up with this, and it's a show that I like because it's fun. So radio, it's a huge medium in the Hispanic
Let me pull
community.
on that, because what I think I'm hearing there is that audio itself, and you identified radio, but audio could be podcast, could be any form of, it could be music on Spotify, right? But audio has resonance within the American Hispanic community, as if it's a single community. Is that because in the country, surrounded by English all the time, but there's such a strong prominence of the Spanish language, it's a reminder of the fabric into which Hispanics fit in the United States. That audio itself is a beautiful reminder, as well as food, as a beautiful reminder of the culture of Hispanic people.
Yes, also, absolutely. I think for first generation, it's a way to be closer to their community, to the country they grew up in, or just listening to Spanish, even if it's not your own accent, can be, it feels nice to just be connected that way.
Even if it's from Madrid, does it feel the same?
I mean, if it were me, I would feel right at home because I'm from Madrid.
Right.
But even me listening to a show with Mexican accents or Cuban accents, it's still Spanish. So, and it's very similar in culture. So I would still feel connected. So I think for second generations that were born here, or third generations, in a way, it's a nostalgia thing as well. It's because, my parents listened or watched the show, or even, I want to feel connected to the community. Even though my native language is English, I sometimes want to continue to dive into this and hear Spanish. When
I worked for a Canadian company that had been sold to an American company, the American company is based in Texas, and it was called Qantas, the American company, and they had a program called Show Us Your Q, which was a program for employees all through the company to show a photo of themselves at work. Show us your Q means show us your photo of you working. One of the Canadian companies was within Quebec, and in the French language, show us your Q, I don't know if it spills over into Spanish, but that means show me your butt, right? Or show me your ass. So that didn't translate very well. What are some of the mistakes that you see from companies when they miss the idea that you cannot just translate word for word?
Well, I had one recently, actually, now that you mention it. And it was a very heavy word in English and in Spanish, so I'm not sure I can repeat it.
It's a podcast. What was it? We'll beep it out if it's too bad.
So the company, it's like butter in English, but said in a certain way that it sounded like puta in Spanish.
Oh, puta.
Puta,
Yeah.
which, it means, prostitute.
Right.
Nicely said, it means prostitute. So they had not realized that because they hadn't asked. I mean, why would they? They started off in English, so they didn't have to think about that. But then when they wanted to translate that into Spanish, I had to tell them, I don't know how we're going to fix this because in Spanish, nobody's going to take you seriously with that name. It's going to be a little bit of a laughing stock. Not on purpose, but it's human nature, obviously. So then what I thought, it's one thing that I can think of doing, because obviously you're not going to change your company name at this point. It's explain how it's pronounced in English below. It's in Spanish, like it's pronounced this way, so that we can educate the Hispanic public on how to actually pronounce it. So that was one possibility that I gave them. Let's see what happens. But it's a challenge. And again, how would they know? It sounds great in English, but then, translation to Spanish, it's completely different.
But Susana, have you tried ChatGPT in terms of translating from Spanish to English, and how accurate is it? Because some people used to use Google Translate, and apparently everyone just thought that was the worst. And I've had some people who've actually said ChatGPT is not bad compared to Google Translate. So I just want to know how effective. Have you tried it? Is it any good?
I have, and I would say the opposite. ChatGPT sometimes hallucinates, so you can use it for translation, but you need to watch like a hawk whatever it translates, because it can be like, why did it go here? Like it has nothing to do with the text that I fed it. It just went crazy. It was like, oh, this story is very boring, I'll make my own story. And then I was reading like, what? So I had to stop using it. I don't know if they perfected it, but I prefer Google Translate. Again, you just need to be very careful. Always watch everything that's being translated, because again, sometimes it's not that it hallucinates, but it doesn't know how to exactly translate something. So it will go to the nearest thing that it thinks it's correct. And it just may have nothing to do with the actual text.
I wanted to ask just a basic 101, for people like me in the UK. We don't have a big Hispanic community in the UK. And when I go to the US, and particularly when I go to Miami, I come across the most incredible vibrancy of the Hispanic community in the food and the music, and it's just intoxicating. And one of the reasons why I love Miami is because I love the whole Hispanic vibe that you get from there. So for audience, who are tuning in, tell us about the Hispanic community. Like, tell us a little bit about, which parts of the US do they tend, to be in, where there's large communities? What kind of size, what kind of like cultural attributes do they have? Just for those who aren't familiar with the Hispanic community, people like myself, how would you describe the Hispanic community, the demographics, the psychographics, so people really get a good feel of the community if they're not necessarily based in North America?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest demographics, they're still from Mexico. They're usually based in California, I think, in Texas. I think that's where the two, I don't know which one. I guess California has a bigger Hispanic community. It's just because in general, it has the biggest Hispanic community in the entire country. I don't remember the millions, honestly, but like the biggest one by a huge difference. And then I would say it's Texas. Texas, also a lot of people from Mexico, maybe some other communities, maybe Peruvian, Ecuadorian, but definitely Mexicans win by a landslide also in Texas. You have also New Mexico, a ton of Mexicans as well. I mean, it just makes sense because it's the country that has the borders. And then Washington State, because it's very rural as well, and there's a big Hispanic community there as well, which a lot of people don't know. Then it's not next to Seattle, but it's not that far away. So people don't understand. Oh, there's Hispanic people in the state of Washington, which is near Oregon, and yes, there is, because there's rural lands there. So a lot of Hispanics go there to farm the area. So you also have a lot of Hispanic media there. Also, of course, Florida, like you said, Miami,
Yeah.
a lot, but you also have in Orlando. And in Miami, it's mostly Cubans, just because of the political situation. That's where a lot of them ended up, and a lot of them ended up in Miami, in also Hialeah, which is the biggest, I think, Cuban neighborhood in the entire country. And then also New York City and New Jersey, which both, I think the city of New York, the Big Apple, I think they have 2 million Hispanics. And there it's mostly, I know it's a lot, there it's mostly Puerto Ricans. And I think a little bit of Dominicans also,
Right.
but mostly Puerto Ricans. And in New Jersey, half and half. There's also a big Cuban population, Colombian, Peruvian, Ecuadorian. Spaniards, not so many. Honestly,
Right.
we're not a huge presence in the U.S., or at least not where it counts in terms of media and such.
Ultimately, what you do is help build trust. So if you're working on political or health related campaigns, I mean those are the ultimate trust tests, where people don't come in with a lot of trust at the beginning. Sensitive topics like immigration, healthcare, public safety. How do you address those with the decision makers? And I suppose when they come to you, they're already quite convinced they need to do things the way that you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I always say, so you can try to build trust in a couple of months, but it's just harder than if you've already set the basis, the foundation since last year. And again, I do understand that not all the campaigns, not all the companies have the power to do that, or the economic means to do that. But the longer you build trust, obviously the better the campaign is going to work, because you're already known in the community. The community leaders know you, so they can vouch for you. So one of the things I usually tell the campaigns that I work with, whether it's political, health-wise, education-wise, it's partner with a grassroots organization or a well-known organization in the community. And there's so many here in the States, and there's some that are national level, regional, or even just very local. And they're not only going to give you kind of a way in, because the community already knows them, but they're going to explain what to do and what not to do in that specific community. They have so much information about the people who live there that they can tell you, oh no, here, this approach doesn't work because of X, Y, Z. You should try this other approach. We should do the campaign on this day because, mothers leave their kids in the kindergarten and they can come. They can give you so much information that you wouldn't have access to if it weren't for them. So that's usually what I would suggest, is try to partner with a local organization. And I think the outcome will be much better in that sense.
Very, very good advice. Susana, thank you for your time.
Yes, of course. I wish we could talk longer.
Yeah.